what seemed like an ordinary morning. But in just a few short minutes, 3 lives were taken away right in their own home. And it all started with a broken phone call and then silence. On March the 16th, 2024, in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, a young girl frantically tried to call 911. On the other end of the line was a cacophony of sounds, screams, footsteps, and then nothing. That call marked the beginning of one of the year's most shocking cases. A federal family massacre committed by a relative. 2 normally peaceful locations, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and Trenton, New Jersey, suddenly became the focus of national media attention. The epicenter of the storm was Andre Gordon Jr., 26, a mild-mannered man, father of 2, who had lived quietly in Trenton. No one expected that within a few hours, the man would become a suspect in a series of crimes that left 3 people dead, 1 seriously injured, and 2 children witnessing the entire tragedy unfolding in their own home. This story is more than a criminal case. It is a mirror of family rifts, a warning about the silence of repressed psychological pain, and the beginning of a journey to find the truth, where every step is marked by blood and the question, how did it all come to this? On the morning of March 16, 2024, a series of serious events began to unfold in the Trenton, New Jersey area. Andre Gordon Jr., 26, was identified as the person who initiated the chain of actions by taking over a car in a quiet residential area in Trenton. That action marked the first step in a plan that no one could have foreseen. After obtaining the vehicle, Gordon quickly drove out of New Jersey and into Pennsylvania, heading to Falls Township, where his father and his father's family lived. Around 9 a.m., Gordon appeared at the family's home. Inside the house at the time were his stepmother, Karen Murphy Gordon, 52, a woman with a military background, and his half-sister, Kira Gordon, 13, an 8th grader. The 2 people in the house clearly sensed something was wrong when Gordon suddenly appeared with a tense attitude. In a moment of panic, they immediately called 911 for help. Through the call, the operator recorded continuous cries for help from the 2 women, along with chaotic noises in the house. The call was interrupted, and when the authorities arrived, the scene became strangely quiet. Not stopping there, Gordon continued to move to another location in Levittown, the home of Taylor Daniel, 25, his former girlfriend and mother of 2 young children. When Gordon appeared at the door, Taylor immediately realized the danger and shouted, "He's got a gun!" as a final warning before going silent. The only sounds left in the house were the cries of a child and hurried footsteps. Here, Gordon seriously injured Taylor. Inside the house, Taylor's mother, Nancy Daniel, was also injured while trying to protect her grandchildren. The 2 young children, Gordon and Taylor's children, were both physically safe but witnessed what happened in the house. After the incident, Gordon continued to leave the scene, finding another residential area in Morrisville. Here, he hijacked another vehicle and returned to Trenton. His journey caused authorities in both states to mobilize a large force to search and control the situation. The whole process only lasted a few hours, but left serious consequences for both the lives and psychology of those involved and the local community. The acts occurred consecutively, quickly, and targeted people with close connections to Gordon, attracting special public attention and raising questions about the motives as well as previous warning signs. As the chain of events began to unfold, the first person to send a distress signal was from inside the house in Falls Township. In the face of danger, Mrs. Karen Murphy Gordon and her daughter Kira promptly called 911. The operator recorded a tense call with chaotic sounds, cries for help mixed with hurried footsteps, the sound of doors closing, and finally terrifying intermittent sounds. As soon as the call was disconnected, the operator immediately contacted the local police force. A rapid response unit was dispatched to the address determined from the phone signal. When they arrived, the officers noticed no signs of normal activity from outside the house. Everything was unusually quiet. The authorities quickly conducted a safety check and entered the house. What they found inside were two victims who were no longer alive, Karen and Kira, with signs of severe trauma. The entire space in the house was in disarray, indicating the chaotic moments before. The morale of the rescue team was clearly affected, because this was not just a simple violent incident, but a tragedy within a family. At the same time, less than an hour later, the emergency call center continued to receive another call from an address in Levittown, where Taylor Daniel lived. The content of the call was cut off immediately after Taylor shouted a warning. When the police arrived at the scene, Taylor was no longer responsive. Inside the house, two young children were cowering in fear in the bedroom. Taylor's mother, Nancy Daniel, was found injured and was rushed to the emergency room. The police quickly identified a connection between the two incidents through the victims' personal characteristics and their connection to Andre Gordon Jr. A large-scale manhunt was immediately launched, marking the transition from the reaction phase to investigation and capture. Immediately after arriving at the two crime scenes, forensic units and investigators conducted a thorough and urgent crime scene examination. At the Falls Township home, where the first incident occurred, the interior was largely intact, except for a few minor disturbances around the living room and hallway. The two victims, Karen Murphy Gordon and Kira, were found close together, with no signs of struggle. Based on the location and condition of the bodies, experts determined that both had been attacked suddenly in a situation where they had no time to react. At the second scene, Taylor Daniel's home in Levittown, the scene left a sense of tension and heaviness. Taylor was found lying in the main room, while her mother, Nancy Daniel, was in an area near the back door, injured but conscious when authorities arrived. The two children were fortunately found safe, but showed signs of psychological distress. Technical evidence was quickly collected, including images from security cameras around the neighborhood, data from the emergency call center, as well as initial statements from survivors. All of these factors helped to strengthen the suspicion of the main suspect, Andre Gordon Jr., and allowed the investigating agency to establish a clear picture of the chain of actions that took place in a short period of time, but had serious consequences. Immediately after determining the seriousness of the two consecutive incidents in Bucks County, the functional units of Pennsylvania and New Jersey immediately coordinated to expand the scope of the investigation. Within just a few hours of discovering the two scenes, all traces, from the initial statements of surviving witnesses, cell phone data, security cameras to personal records, led to one name, Andre Gordon Jr. The identification of the suspect was quick because Gordon had direct contact with all three deceased victims. Investigators determined that this was not a random attack, but a targeted act with clearly selected targets. The family relationship, simultaneous access to many locations in a short period of time, and the way it was carried out all showed that this was a continuous and calculated series of actions. The Bucks County Sheriff and first responders immediately issued a statewide arrest warrant for Andre Gordon Jr. and released his identity and photo to the press. Residents in the affected areas were asked to stay indoors, keep their doors closed, and report any sightings of Gordon. Nearby schools were placed on lockdown for the safety of students and staff. Through a review of traffic cameras and witness accounts, authorities determined that Gordon left the scene of the last crime in Morrisville and returned to the Trenton area, where he lived. Checkpoints were set up along the route from Pennsylvania to New Jersey, and federal forces began assisting in coordinating the search. Meanwhile, the Special Investigation Team began to analyze Gordon's personal records in detail. They discovered that he had a history of domestic conflicts, especially minor fights involving relatives. Although he did not have a serious criminal record, the records showed that the police had been called several times for major domestic disputes. Gordon's relationship with his ex-girlfriend Taylor Daniel also showed signs of ongoing tension, especially after the two broke up. The investigation team approached Nancy Daniel, the only survivor at the second scene. Although injured, she was conscious enough to describe the incident in detail, including the time Gordon broke in, Taylor's last words, the location of the children in the house, and the suspect's actions. These statements reinforce the initial assessment that Gordon intended to cause harm and acted with intent. At the same time, the digital team reviewed information from phones, social media accounts, and vehicle location. A key signal emerged. Gordon's phone was detected moving within a residential area in Trenton. After cross-checking with data from cell towers, police narrowed down the radius of where the suspect might be hiding. On the afternoon of March the 16th, task forces and Trenton police were dispatched to the suspected scene, an apartment complex near the city center. According to intelligence, Gordon may be holding several people hostage, including acquaintances or roommates. A negotiation team was deployed, and tactical options were prepared if necessary. After more than 3 hours of blockade and negotiation, there was no strong reaction from inside. Finally, the task force decided to storm the apartment with the help of surveillance robots and non-lethal equipment. When they entered, they found Gordon with an adult and a child, both of whom were physically and mentally safe. Notably, Gordon was unresponsive, unarmed at the time of his arrest, and appeared exhausted. After receiving a medical examination, Gordon was immediately transferred to the Bucks County Police Department for questioning. During the initial questioning, the suspect did not deny his involvement in the previous incidents, but remained silent, only answering short questions. Police seized Gordon's phone, clothes, and other items to assist in the investigation. When information about Gordon's arrest was announced, the local community expressed relief, but also could not hide their grief and shock. On social media, many people shared their feelings of grief for the victims, especially the girl Kira, who bravely called 911 in the moment of life and death. Organizations protecting children's rights, preventing domestic violence, and supporting women all spoke out to request increased prevention and psychological support after the tragedy. The investigation agency then proceeded to consolidate the case file with the collected evidence, witness statements, camera data, emergency call logs, forensic reports, and results of the scene examination. Prosecutors affirmed that this was one of the most serious family cases in the area in many years, and pledged to handle it with all legal capacity to protect justice for the victims. Less than 48 hours after the incident, the entire chain of events was clarified with the suspect in custody, no longer capable of causing danger. Preparations for the trial were quickly deployed, laying the foundation for the criminal trial scheduled to take place a few months later. This is not only an investigation journey to bring the perpetrator to light, but also a concerted effort between law enforcement forces to protect the community from potential dangers from within society. Nearly 14 months after the tragic events that shook the community, on May 28, 2025, Andre Gordon Jr., the accused at the center of the case, officially appeared in court at Bucks County Court, Pennsylvania. With no more escape routes, Gordon unexpectedly pleaded guilty to first-degree murder of 3 victims: his stepmother, half-sister, and ex-girlfriend. The trial took place in a heavy atmosphere. The prosecution made a strong argument, asserting that the defendant's actions were not impulsive, but a series of planned actions, targeting those closest to him. Prosecutor Jennifer Shorn stated, "This was not a spontaneous incident. This was a targeted manhunt, occurring in the victims' own homes." The prosecution presented a full array of evidence gathered over a year of investigation, from the 911 call with the cry for help, security camera footage, testimony from survivors, to the results of the crime scene examination. Every detail contributed to painting a clear and tragic picture of the defendant's guilt. The court, presided over by Judge Raymond McHugh, after listening to the arguments from both sides, handed down the sentence: 3 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 156 to 313 years in prison for the additional charges of trespassing, vehicle hijacking, assault, and menacing. In his statement at the sentencing hearing, Judge McHugh said frankly, "There are no words that can adequately express the pain and loss that the families have suffered. These actions have left a deep wound that will never heal." The court also took time for the victim's family representative to share their grief. "We have not only lost our daughter, but also our peace and faith in goodness," said an emotional relative of Kira. The defense attorney did not object to the verdict, saying that his client accepted the verdict as part of his responsibility for the consequences he had caused. Gordon's guilty plea also helped shorten the trial, preventing the witnesses, especially the 2 children, from having to face more painful memories. The verdict was considered by the community to be harsh and fair. It not only closed a sad chapter, but also emphasized the message: justice is always present, and the families of the victims deserve to be comforted by the truth and the strictness of the law. In the space of a few hours on a March morning, 3 lives were lost: a mother, a teenage girl, and a young woman, all of whom had close ties to the perpetrator. Meanwhile, 2 innocent children lost their mother right before their eyes, and a once close-knit family was completely wiped out. The Andre Gordon Jr. case is more than a criminal case. It is a testament to the serious consequences of psychological cracks, of conflicts within families that are not properly recognized and resolved. It is also a strong reminder of the violence in private spaces, which should be the safest place for each person. The community has witnessed a tragedy, but from it, the lesson learned is that any sign of abnormality in the relationship between family members or the community cannot be ignored. Listening, providing timely psychological support, and intervening early can not only prevent loss, but also help heal broken relationships. Ultimately, the case raises a question not only for the law, but for all of us. Are we really listening to the warning signs enough? From within our families, from our communities, and from those around us? If you find this story important, please share it so that more people can recognize the seemingly normal danger signs. Subscribe to the channel to join us in delving deeper into the dark corners of justice.